Some of them. Part of the reason. Last, they can't see the it's last, it's for here, past, going on, and last, and it's happy, you know, I just have to, I think so. Oh, well, yeah, cool, Sam. So, yeah. That's.
Yeah.
Didn't they, after they got the second meeting, everything was all set to go. And then it was like, well, yeah. The funny one, but then he says something to do along. Or something like oh, yeah. People that they're going to get the care that they need. They're going to have to waste time. They're going to end up wasting time there. It'll take them all the way.
Like I said, that's hard. Besides, how many percentage of populations?
So you have to. But if you just speak about smoke, that would be in violation. The free burn.
See the water.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday meeting. Please stand. Brad, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Join me in a pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dr. Andrews,
Yes. Before we test the things that we think, say, and do, is it the truth?
is it the truth?
Is it
Is it fair to all concerned?
Beneficial to all concerned.
Well, it'll be beneficial to all.
Here in Lahaina?
Yes. Well, I see we have our, oh, yes. Yeah, I left it up. Sorry. Yes, the tablet, I forgot to throw in my bag. I charged it, took it out of my bag, and then I didn't.
Oh. Really use it.
I run around a lot in the morning, I apologize. All right, is this for, what is this for? It's okay. Because I'll spot anybody, who wants to buy tickets.
Do you want to do?
Yes, let's, hand out the Rotary jar, the blue jars going around. Would somebody like to collect happy dollars? Who's feeling? Leo.
I.
Yeah.
And just donate like $5.
Oh, good idea.
So you can just plug in there. And you can just plug in your card instead of having to. You can always just do that, so.
So we have a Square website you can go to.
Yes.
And I will send, I should probably put out the link up or just advertise it. So people know where it is. What is the website? Do you know? Is it, just Google.
I just Google Lahaina.
Yes.
Awesome. I know I sent it to someone the other day.
Yeah, so if you Google Lahaina Sunrise and then Square, you'll find it and you can do that way. I apologize for today. I charged up the tablet. I took it out of my bag to arrange some things and I didn't make it into my bag. It's such a useful thing when we have it. But we don't have it today. Happy dollars, yes. Thank you.
I'll start. So, this weekend we had a chance to go to the Big Shot, Little Shot fundraiser in Lahaina, which is the Boys and Girls Club. Our faithful member TJ is a big part of that, and he did a really good job. So it was really nice seeing him and a really great fundraiser for the island.
Congratulations.
One of my friends from Santa Barbara was in Honolulu doing blood testing. He's an instructor, and the weather was so bad she couldn't do it. So she told me after she what are you doing? Tuesday. I was happy to do that. I realized that I go on for like next year and this year. And I also have to check in memory of my. Here's.
Hours, we had some friends visit last week, it was a lovely, evening. And, more than it comes, but I'm happy to, I got an email about the parking over here, that dedicating this thing, is it done? Is it Friday, done?
Blessing of the Department of Office today. So.
Well, I'm giving it for that part. I'll say it.
It was not, the here was built for the. 75, they're going for intra-state ferries, I do that, but, I mean, the night ferry, they didn't put big enough seats in the docks, so the night ferry came to it. So, you know how it is. $100 for, at Norm in There's lots, both of them, had a great food. That was so nice to see, and finally got my laptop set up, so I said. Got a $50 for, the opportunity to see everybody, and we had a really nice, event over at Lahaina. Driving.
All right, polio jar is going around, I see. And it's wonderful to have Eve back. Welcome back, Eve. Yes, Randy, what club do you come from again? Overwatch. Welcome, it's good to have you back. All right, we have a quote today. The quote is, "It is a curious situation that the sea from which the life first arose should now be threatened by the activities of one form of that life. But the sea, though changed in a sinister way, will continue to exist. The threat is rather to life itself." And this is from Rachel Clarkson. I was going to show a video today, but we might actually end up doing a project today about the ocean. But that's why I have the sea quote in there. Kind of this sea. Are we ready for the drawing?
Yes. What's the prizes?
The prizes are breakfast for somebody with this gift card at Lahaina. So any Rotary member that it's free breakfast donated by Gerald last week, and this beautiful handwoven basket. This is the choice.
Okay. And the winning number is 457.
That's me.
Ah,
All right.
all right. Breakfast or a basket? Oh, that's right. That's right. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. This was silly. I just want more money in the pot.
Probably.
Probably.
No, we've got 156.
All right, so you were the final winner of
Much breakfast. 684.
That would be fine. That would be.
Oh. Congratulations. All right, today, we don't have a guest speaker today. Our guest speaker couldn't make it, so we have a project that we're going to do involving making St. Patrick's Day little gifts for the senior center, right? So we'll be working on that, and or we also have a movie. If you'd like to watch a movie too, TED Talk, we could do that while we're making. Okay, do that. All right. Before we get to that, though, I have two announcements. We have our vocational tour is on March 25th. So that'll be over at the exercise.
Enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride. That's right. Which I probably could use some exercise. So I'm looking forward to going. Yes. So March 25th. Looking forward to that.
And I just want to share that I went to see Philip, and I said, I really feel some strength in my knees. My surgery, so he's put together a plan for me, and then we met once in my house with all the stuff I have, and showed me a bunch of things to do. And then this week we came and they came in Kumar, so I got a membership course, so I said, let's go to the gym, show me what machines I can purchase. I'm gonna send it, And he came and did that as well, and it's just been really, really good, even for 10 days that we're doing that, I've already noticed the difference, so. If any of you feel like the mobility is being compromised, I'm highly recommend you take the time to, it'll do lots.
Should be fun then. I'm sure, I'm not sure, I'm sure that's probably some of the things that we'll be going over. How to exercise properly, and looking forward to learning and getting back into the exercise routine. Maybe this is spur me on.
What time is
11:30.
Saturday.
I'll make it there. Also, I'd like to remind you that if you're parked over there by the library, you probably should move, because they're going to have they're going to bless the harbor master. Office. The office. Where's the office actually? They'll bless him too, I'm sure. He's in the office. Lay hands on the harbor master. So the office. Where's the office? Is it inside the? Okay.
The big workers thing out there.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Oh,
I thought it was a ticket booth. Okay, great. Okay. So that should be a nice function. Looks like we have boats in there, so.
The same place as the other one, but it's bigger. Built for, I don't know what, World War III.
Hurricane. Well, it's a nice harbor. It looks like they've got a couple boats in it, so that's good. We won't hear as much construction, I hope.
Yeah, they need to change the sign now. Governor's no longer David E. Day.
Yeah.
We don't show that sign to Josh.
Okay, we're coming up on the deadline for registering, at least through Rotary, for the Together We Can Rotary in Hawaii District Conference. That's at the Grand Nanilua Resort. You can book your room up until the 15th, it says, but you probably want to get it sooner than later. I'm not sure if that's the goal, if you're planning to go. Looks like a reasonable rate. Let's go. Place. All right. I also, I think those of you who are the district officers and club officers, we're going to have a meeting on Thursday evening to kind of go over all the things that have to be done by the end of the year. I have to confess, I still have a lot of ramping up to do to get through this. So I appreciate have a meeting to kind of discuss all that stuff, and that's for the officers this evening. So look for on Thursday. So look for a invitation for that. 6 o'clock, I was thinking. Does that sound good? 6 or 7? 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock. 6 is good for me. Yeah. Okay, I don't have any more announcements. Is there anything else I'm missing here that I need to discuss? Yes.
I'm reluctant to bring this up, but I'm going to anyway. Maybe remember 3 weeks ago, Jim was here and we attended the Rotary holiday game.
Yes.
As a prize, which I won, which I don't really need. But, anybody wants to try to be happy, it's a special edition Monopoly game with the club presidents from the Sacramento district.
Yes. Which I'm sure is great if you're in Sacramento.
I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So much effort to read it. It's so nice.
If you want to talk about what you did on Sunday.
I do, yes, I do. I'm very happy to share that. All right, so we had, last couple of weeks, we've been meeting to discuss, meeting with scholarship applicants. So we picked a wonderful scholarship applicant from our club, Haley Chang. She was great, and I really had high hopes that she was going to get selected to go to the state for the $10,000 scholarship, but it was very tough competition. So our Haley came in pretty close. Except she was everybody's first or second choice. But we selected a fine applicant from Molokai. She has a good shot because she plans to go to UH Manoa. And so her sisters go there. she has a great story, like so many others. Haley had a wonderful story. She brought in our group, met to interview Haley. She was very inspirational, and she brought us, kind of put a tear in all of our eyes. And she did the same thing for the group that interviewed her. So she's wonderful too. So I'm very proud to be part of that. And I think we picked a fine applicant. And I think we have so much good quality students here in Hawaii, in Maui, probably Hawaii, that it was a real inspiration for me to be part of that. So I'm looking forward to continue to do that next year. We had a great group of people interviewing, a wonderful conversation. We all were looking at, there's a lot of things we were looking at in these students. One of them was financial need. Like, what are the chances of this person going to college without scholarship? And a lot of these students, their parents have no money, but they're stellar students. All of them had a 4.0 average that we selected for the state. And even in our group, most of them had 4.0. All of them were hardworking. All of them had great attitudes. They were optimistic about what they could do to change the world. Many of them want to come back here. The applicant that we selected is Hawaiian, native Hawaiian, and she plans to stay here. She's a wonderful, talented artist. So her name is, well, yeah, I can't, it's a lot, it's a lot, but it's a longer name, and then the last name. So I'll send that information out about her, just so you can see. Hopefully she gets selected. We're keeping our fingers crossed that she makes it through state, because it'd be nice to have. We have a pretty good track record on Maui of selecting the person at least 10,000.
The applicants were absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
It was really tough because they were all observing. But yeah, I was impressed with the caliber of the students that at that time going to go on to do something important in their lives.
Yeah, they're all very involved in Rotary. We had a lot of people involved in Interact there, but also there are churches, other organizations. Haley, the girl we selected here from our club, she had traveled to Bosnia, I think it was, and she made teddy bears. Her and her mom, and somehow her and her mom were sent there to deliver these teddy bears that they sewed together themselves. They're all very creative. Haley was president of her crochet club. She was head of our hula club. She was involved in sports. She had an over 4.0 average. I mean, these are great students, and it's such a thrill to be part of that process of selecting our students. And as I mentioned, Olapa is a beautiful artist on Molokai. She has 4 siblings, and all of them have gone on to college. And her role model, I think, is over also her sister, who is also at UH Manila. So it'd be nice to join those together. So all in all, I mean, the hard part about this was, why can't we give all these people $10,000? But we can't. But so it was a great experience. So I just wanted to share that with you, and that's one of the great things about being in Rotary. You get to be part of that kind of thing. And yes.
But the recipient from our club definitely got 5,000, right?
She definitely got 5,000. Yes, she got 5,000, and she was at a really good shot at the 10,000. I mean, she was up there. It was very close. Everybody loved to meet these.
So we'll invite her to, I can contact her.
Yeah,
And meet her in spring break.
that would be wonderful. Yes, we can all meet her. She's really, it's a great. She did a great job. I think she did some research about in her interview. She did some research about Rotary. So she talked when we asked her, "What do you know about Rotary?" She shared about she was interested in a lot of our international efforts, right? And she was just well prepared, a little nervous, but she did a great job. And she and by the time her interview was done, she won everybody's heart. She was great. So I'm very proud of our Haley. Okay, anything else? Yes.
Well, we had, so our cutoff date for vocational scholarship application was yesterday. There was one more that I guess was emailed this weekend, so we're gonna look at, and we'll check the PO box and just make sure nothing else popped into there.
Yeah.
But maybe on Thursday, we go over the applicants.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Did we get enough for all of our scholarships?
We actually have one extra, so now we had the fee that came in for the $250, and then we also had. I'm not seeing this last one, I don't know what it is, if it's the fiscal scholarship. Or so, once we can open the doc.
Yeah. I requested, I just sent, when I opened, I tried to open it and requested. And I'll send her a message from our Rotary Club account, so they can give us permissions to open it. So, yeah, yeah. Once we can open it, I can save it as a Word document. Yeah. All right. Movie at the prison. Anything we'd like to share about that? Coming up. You did, yeah. I just wonder if there's any updates. I'm just looking for. Okay.
On a million different staff on the floor right now, I'm looking for a travel person. So I know this night I didn't, it was our business speaking. Because of the word. Had married, not married. Anyway, I ran into our father actually. And it out. So I told them, okay, I did a movie in your neighborhood. And you what's with that? And you're like, we run like the Jefferson Pennsylvania, these were the street. So, so that was my missing link in my fiscal grading. I don't have any person that really knows how to. Something goes wrong. It goes wrong. So that's next movie is the Lion Soul. Original movie, the activist that
Oh, yeah.
stopped the bombing. But that's really good. People are slow getting the information of where they are. But it's gonna be the third video, I guess, on George, and then another video on him. He was also a musician playing music. And then another video from the Kamalani people. And then and we might have proper. Rotary Cross Run. We've got everything. I just keep fighting. It's last Saturday at the old prison.
Same day,
Yeah, it's closed for the so, they're kind of just calling, no, it's closed every weekend. On Saturday, you want that backlot, people can't park there. You have to. Come and do all the things and stuff, and then put them all that. I don't know. Well, that's fine. You know, that's like.
So I'm looking forward to that. I'm in the process of taking our meetings and editing them and for the speaker information and putting those on our YouTube page. So once I get that, I'll link on our website. So if you ever want to see a past speaker, all the ones that I've recorded, I'll try to upload up there to YouTube. I was able to get things uploaded onto our YouTube. We have a YouTube page because we have a Google account. So with that, we can do that, and we can put some things out there to promote, and to show up, you know, so people are the kind of speakers we can come. A lot of times we like to go back and hear some information from some of the presentations, like the foundation presentation, for example, because they have useful information, and this will be a record of all the different information that we share. Okay. Anything else?
I would just like to remind people that, I said probably know that may be interested in the benefit. That, I'd be happy to send them up for one. I was like, throw my.
We should send some forms to some of our speakers that we had. They need to send one to, I think, the Casey. We came to talk about the basketball program. Be interested. And then also, I mean, if they can't join in person, I'm trying to get Zoom working better, although as Theo was sharing, sometimes technology doesn't go according to plan. And I think I brought the wrong remote control. It's not working. I have 2 different hotspots. And it's not working today. So otherwise I'd be able to pan the audience. Okay, so what I have for the rest of the meeting, we have a project of putting together these St. Patrick's Day gifts. Also, I can show a video in the background. It's a video about a researcher, a ocean biology researcher, who's found a spot in the Republic of Kiribati, which is in the middle of the ocean. There's a series of islands and mountains. And this area is a pristine area for studying the ocean. He said a lot of places he's gone to, he thought he was going to go to a place where it's pristine and nothing there, and he finds plastic. So this is a very good, so he talks a lot about the state of our oceans and also the plight of the islands in Kiribati, because a lot of them are, because of climate change, the islands are going away. So very interesting presentation. And I think he did this, they had a TEDx talk on the Galapagos Islands. So it looked like an interesting presentation. So I'll do that in the background, and we can compare St. Patrick's Day. So first of all, let's what do we do to prepare these things?
We have in here, I'm just gonna land the box right here. We have in here these crickets with the points in there, and then we have these carnations, and all you gotta do is tie a packet to a carnation, so they ultimately end up like that. And then what we're gonna do is deliver them to the Noah Senior Center, and Stacy is going to be giving them to their Meals on Wheels organization to be delivered to the recipients of the Meals on Wheels on St. Patrick's Day. And then whatever left over, they'll just give it to their seniors that's at the center on that day. Okay, she said, they love us the Valentine's goodies that we made, so it's really a nice treat. So here's, I put ribbons in here too that you can just tie and make a nice little bow. Thank you guys. No, I know.
Your dedicated Cintas service help make sure your team has the essential products they need to help keep them looking great, feeling confident, and ready to be their best. Get Cintas and get ready for the workday.
I guess the story actually has to start maybe back in the 1960s when I was 7 or 8 years old, watching Jacques Cousteau documentaries on the living room floor with my mask and flippers on. And then after every episode, I had to go up to the bathtub and swim around the bathtub and look at the drain, because that's all there was to look at. And by the time I turned 16, I pursued a career in marine science and exploration and diving, and lived in underwater habitats like this one off the Florida Keys for 30 days total. Brian Scarry took this shot, thanks Brian. And I've dived in deep sea submersibles around the world. And this one is the deepest diving submarine in the world, operated by the Japanese government. And Sylvia Earle and I were on an expedition in this submarine 20 years ago in Japan. And on my dive, I went down 18,000 feet to an area that I thought would be a pristine wilderness area on the seafloor. But when I got there, I found lots of plastic, garbage, and other debris. And it was really a turning point in my life where I started to realize that I couldn't just go have fun doing science and exploration. I needed to put it into a context. I needed to head towards conservation goals. So I began to work with National Geographic Society and others and led expeditions to Antarctica. I led 3 diving expeditions to Antarctica. 10 years ago was a seminal trip where we explored that big iceberg B-15, the largest iceberg in history that broke off the Ross Ice Shelf. And we developed techniques to dive inside and under the iceberg, such as heating pads on our kidneys with a battery that we dragged around so that as the blood flowed through our kidneys, it would get a little boost of warmth before going back into our bodies. But after 3 trips to Antarctica, I decided that it might be nicer to work in warmer water. And that same year, 10 years ago, I headed north to the Phoenix Islands. And I'm going to tell you that story here in a moment. But before I do, I just want you to ponder this graph for a moment. You may have seen this in other forms, but the top line is the amount of protected area on land globally, and it's about 12%. And you can see that it kind of hockey sticks up around the 1960s and 70s, and it's on a kind of a nice trajectory right now. And that's probably because that's when everybody got aware of the environment and Earth Day and all the stuff that happened in the 60s with the hippies and everything. Really did, I think, have an effect on global awareness. But the ocean protected area is basically flatline. Until right about now, it appears to be ticking up. And I do believe that we are at the hockey stick point of the protected area in the ocean. I think we would have gotten there a lot earlier if we could see what happens in the ocean like we can see what happens on land. But unfortunately, the ocean is opaque and we can't see what's going on, and therefore we're way behind on protection. But scuba diving, submersibles, and all the work that we're setting about to do here will help rectify that. So where are the Phoenix Islands? They were the world's largest marine protected area up until last week when the Chagos Archipelago was declared. It's in the mid-Pacific. It's about 5 days from anywhere. If you want to get to the Phoenix Islands, it's 5 days from Fiji, it's 5 days from Hawaii, it's 5 days from Samoa. It's out in the middle of the Pacific, right around the equator. I had never heard of the islands 10 years ago, nor the country Kiribati that owns them, till 2 friends of mine who run a liveaboard dive boat in Fiji said, "Greg, would you lead a scientific expedition up to these islands? They've never been dived." And I said, "Yeah, but tell me where they are and the country that owns them." So that's when I first learned of the islands and had no idea what I was getting into, but I was in for the adventure. Let me give you a little peek here of the Phoenix Islands protected area. It's a very deep water part of our planet. The average depths are about 12,000 feet. There's lots of seamounts in the Phoenix Islands, which are specifically part of the protected area. Seamounts are important for biodiversity. There's actually more mountains in the ocean than there are on land. It's an interesting fact. And the Phoenix Islands is very rich in those seamounts. So it's a deep, think about it in a big 3-dimensional space, very deep 3-dimensional space with herds of tuna, whales, all kinds of deep sea marine life like we've seen here before. That's the vessel that we took up there for these studies early on, and that's what the islands look like. You can see in the background. They're very low to the water, and they're all uninhabited, except one island has about 35 caretakers on it. And they've been uninhabited for most of time because even in the ancient days, these islands were too far away from the bright lights of Fiji and Hawaii and Tahiti for those ancient Polynesian mariners that were traversing the Pacific so widely. But we got up there and I had the unique and wonderful scientific opportunity and personal opportunity to get to a place that had never been dived and just get to an island and go, okay, where are we going to dive? Let's try there. And then falling into the water, both my personal and professional life changed. Suddenly I saw a world that I had never seen before in the ocean. Schools of fish that were so dense they dulled the penetration of sunlight from the surface. Coral reefs that were continuous and solid and colorful. Large fish everywhere, manta rays. It was an ecosystem, parrotfish spawning. This is about 5,000 long-nosed parrotfish spawning at the entrance to one of the Phoenix Islands. You can see the fish are balled up, and then there's a little cloudy area there where they're exchanging the eggs and sperm for reproduction. Events that the ocean is supposed to do, but struggles to do in many places now because of human activity. The Phoenix Islands and all the equatorial parts of our planet are very important for tuna fisheries, especially this yellowfin tuna that you see here. Phoenix Islands is a major tuna location, and sharks. We had sharks on our early dives, up to 150 sharks at once, which is an indication of a very, very healthy, very strong system. So I thought the scenes of never-ending wilderness would go on forever, but they did finally come to an end, and we explored the surface of the islands as well. Very important bird nesting sites, some of the most important bird nesting sites in the Pacific, in the world. And we finished our trip. And that's the area again. You can see the islands. There's 8 islands that pop out of the water. The peaks that don't come out of the water are the seamounts. Remember, a seamount turns into an island when it hits the surface. And what's the context of the Phoenix Islands? Where do these exist? Well, they exist in the Republic of Kiribati, and Kiribati is located in the Central Pacific in 3 island groups. In the west, we have the Gilbert Islands. In the center, we have the Phoenix Islands, which is the subject that I'm talking about. And then over to the east, we have the Line Islands. It's the largest atoll nation in the world, and they have about 110,000 people spread out over 33 islands. They control 3.4 million cubic miles of ocean. And that's between 1% and 2% of all the ocean water on the planet. And when I was first going up there, I barely knew the name of this country 10 years ago, and people would ask me, why are you going to this place called Kiribati? And it reminded me of that old joke where the bank robber comes out of the courthouse handcuffed, and the reporter yells, "Hey, Willie, why do you rob banks?" And he says, "Because that's where all the money is." And I would tell people, why do I go to Kiribati? Because that's where all the ocean is. They basically are one nation that controls most of the equatorial waters of the Central Pacific Ocean. They're also a country that is in dire danger. Sea levels are rising, and Kiribati, along with 42 other nations in the world, will be underwater within 50 to 100 years due to climate change and the associated sea level rise from thermal expansion and the melting of fresh water into the ocean. The islands rise only 1 to 2 meters above the surface. Some of the islands have already gone underwater, and these nations are faced with a real problem. We as a world are faced with a problem. What do we do with displaced fellow earthlings that no longer have a home on the planet? The president of the Maldives conducted a mock cabinet meeting underwater recently to highlight the dire straits of these countries. So it's something we need to focus on. But back to the Phoenix Islands, which is the subject of this talk. After I got back, I said, okay, this is amazing what we found. I'd like to go back and share it with the government of Kiribati, who are over in Tarawa, the westernmost group. So I started contacting them because they had actually given me a permit to do this. And I said, I want to come up and tell you what we found. And for some reason, they didn't want me to come, or it was hard to find a time and a place, and it took a while. But finally, they said, okay, you can come, but if you come, you have to buy lunch for everybody that comes to the seminar. So I said, okay, I'm happy to buy lunch, just get whatever anybody wants. So David Obura, a coral reef biologist, and I went to Tarawa, and we presented for 2 hours on the amazing findings of the Phoenix Islands. And the country had never knew this. They'd never had any data from this area. They'd never had any information from the Phoenix Islands. After the talk, the Minister of Fisheries walked up to me and he said, Greg, do you realize that you are the first scientist that has ever come back and told us what they did? He said, we often issue these permits to do research in our waters, but usually we get a note 2 or 3 years later or a reprint. But you're the first one that's ever come back and told us what you did. We really appreciate that. And we're buying you lunch today. And are you free for dinner? And I was free for dinner. And I went out to dinner with the Minister of Fisheries in Kiribati. And over the course of dinner, I learned that Kiribati gains most of its revenue. It's a very poor country, but it gains what revenue it has by selling access to foreign nations to take fish out of its waters, because Kiribati does not have the capacity to take the fish itself. And the deal that they strike is the extracting country gives Kiribati 5% of the landed value. So if the United States removes $1 million worth of lobsters from a reef, Kiribati gets $50,000. And it didn't seem like a very good deal to me. So I asked the minister over dinner, I said, would you consider a situation where you would still get paid if we do the math and figure out what the value of the resource is, but you leave the fish and the sharks and the shrimp in the water? He stopped and he said, yes, we would like to do that to deal with our overfishing problem, and I think we would call it a reverse fishing license. He coined the term reverse fishing license. So I said, yes, a reverse fishing license. So we walked away from this dinner really not knowing where to go at that point. I went back to the States and started looking around to see if I could find examples where reverse fishing licenses had been issued, and it turned out there were none. There were no oceanic deals where countries were compensated for not fishing. It had occurred on land in rainforests of South America and Africa, where landowners had been paid not to cut the trees down. And Conservation International had struck some of those deals, so I went to Conservation International and brought them in as a partner and went through the process of valuing the fishery resource, deciding how much Kiribati should be compensated, what the range of the fishes were, brought in a whole bunch of other partners, the government of Australia, the government of New Zealand, the World Bank, the Oak Foundation, and National Geographic have been big funders of this as well. And we basically founded the park on the idea of an endowment that would pay the equivalent lost fishing license fees to this very poor country to keep the area intact. Halfway through this process, I met the president of Kiribati, President Anote Tong. He's a really important leader, a very visionary, forward-thinking man. And he told me two things when I approached him. He said, Greg, there's two things I'd like you to do. One is, remember, I'm a politician, so you've got to go out and work with my ministers and convince the people of Kiribati that this is a good idea. Secondly, I'd like you to create principles that will transcend my own presidency. I don't want to do something like this if it's going to go away after I'm voted out of office. So we had very strong leadership, very good vision, and a lot of science, a lot of lawyers involved. There were many, many steps were taken to pull this off. And it was primarily because Kiribati realized that this was in their own self-interest to do this. They realized that this was a common cause that they had found with the conservation community. Then, in 2002, when this was all going full swing, a coral bleaching event happened in the Phoenix Islands. Here's this resource that we're looking to save, and it turns out it's the hottest heating event that we can find on record. The ocean heated up, as it does sometimes, and the hotspot formed and stalled right over the Phoenix Islands for 6 months. It was over 32 degrees Celsius for 6 months, and it basically killed 60% of the coral. So suddenly we had this area that we were protecting, but now it appeared to be dead, at least in the coral areas. Of course, the deep sea areas and the open ocean areas were fine, but the coral, which everybody likes to look at, was in trouble. Well, the good news is it's recovered, and recovering fast, faster than any reef we've seen. This picture was just taken by Brian Scarry a few months ago when we returned to the Phoenix Islands and discovered that because it is a protected area and has healthy fish populations that keep the algae grazed down and keep the rest of the reef healthy, the coral is booming. It's just booming back. It's almost like if a person has multiple diseases, it's hard to get well, you might die, but if you only have one disease to deal with, you can get better. And that's the story with climate change heating. It's the only threat, the only influence that the reef had to deal with. There was no fishing, there was no pollution, there was no coastal development, and the reef is on a full bore recovery. Now, I remember that dinner I had with the Minister of Fisheries 10 years ago. When we first brought this up, and I got quite animated during the dinner and said, well, I think that the conservation community might embrace this idea, Minister. He paused and put his hands together and said, yes, Greg, but the devil will be in the details, he said. And it certainly was. The last 10 years have been detail after detail, ranging from creating legislation to multiple research expeditions to communication plans. As I said, teams of lawyers, MOUs, creating the Phoenix Islands Trust Board, and we are now in the process of raising the full endowment. Kiribati has frozen extractive activities at its current state while we raise the endowment. We just had our first PIPA Trust Board meeting 3 weeks ago, so it's a fully functional, up and running entity that negotiates the reverse fishing license with the country, and the PIPA Trust Board holds that license and pays the country for this. So it's a very solid, very well thought out, very well grounded system. And it was a bottoms up system. And that was very important, that this worked from the bottom up to secure this. So the conditions for success here are listed. You can read them yourselves, but I would say probably the most important one in my mind was working within the market forces of the situation. And that ensured that we could move this forward and that would have both the self-interests of Kiribati as well as the self-interests of the world. And I'll leave you with one final slide. That is, how do we scale this up? How do we realize Sylvia's dream? Where does Mission Blue take this? Here's the Pacific with large MPAs and large conservation zones on it. And as you can see, we have a patchwork across this ocean. I've just described to you the one story behind that rectangular area in the middle, the Phoenix Islands, but every other green patch on that has its own story. And what we need to do now is look at the whole Pacific Ocean in its entirety and make a network of MPAs across the Pacific so that we have our world's largest ocean protected and self-sustaining over time. Thank you very much.
Most important part of your business? Yeah, I saw on the news on Sunday that the UN is reaching agreement to among all the nations to protect one of the oceans. Yeah, that was amazing. Thanks, John.
Just goes to show you all the things, I mean, it's good to see when you watch that we're actively talking about this. There's an effort to recognize the impact of climate change. You know, the word needs to be done with plastics. One thing we said, sort of finding a history that plastic bottom of the ocean, that's where it got its silence. So, yeah, it's like it's encouraging to see, you know, and it's sort of interesting that all these different scientists have done that area, and none of them have done anything to just study them. Probably just turn in papers or whatever. Never told the island and what they found. It's kind of disrespectful. So these different areas, people, and that's the other thing that we forget to do is when we're protecting the environment, we're also protecting people. Their land, their islands are going away. So it's a big crisis. It's good to see they're talking about these things, but then at the same time, you see all what's going on in Ukraine and China, and it seems like we get farther. But it's great. I mean, to kind of turn that around into a Rotary thing, it's great to be involved in Rotary because that's one of our core principles, the environment. So, I just and being here in Hawaii also, I think brings us closer to what's going to the ocean. And ever since I've gotten here, I've been looking to learn more about this, not just Hawaii, but all the different islands and peoples in the Pacific, because a lot of people come here. Tongans at my church, Samoans, Micronesians, Melanesians, and all these different people that come from all over. And so it's such a great, so when you're here, you kind of feel more in touch and connected. And so I think that's one of the importance. It's great to see this kind of communication going. And anyway, let's go out and imagine a world where we can make a difference and maybe halt the impacts of climate change and heating of the oceans and things like that. I don't think I well Sunday.
Well, it looks like it's hard to so,
How long are you here for, Brian? We go to the real savings. Find out that I have to do this. Yes. And it can be rated by the year, but then have these categories like administrative, all these different. We can think of it. Yeah, once they go back. But I think how to get and email, YouTube is how that. I know we have some great things like having to call up the.
There is a multiple on this, but. And I think you can only do the check on the category. Because they can have to say something. You is about. Go on years. About.
You know, I put on the lessons, we have to remember that. That's the license charge enough. I think like years. It's like, it's in this money upstairs, not a. No, it's been a lot of them. They also do the same thing.
Children's about.
I think it's an option, you know, like you get like guys, busy people, like, I mean, trucks will use it. But they get like Casey, for example, who's probably kind of busy. It's that'd be fine. Or different people that want to join this. It's always an option. But thank you for category. Category is not.
The awards, and this sort of movies coming to the end of the club year. And then I mean, like, to such a good thing that has been done, and we keep talking about the foundation points, which I had before for the multiple transfer points, that sort of things, that we can discuss. You know, like how much was improving from the one criteria. You know, I feel like we keep talking about it, but it's already on.
Yeah,
I want there to be a thing.
I do too. It's like starting off slowly.
So, you know, it's send a spreadsheet of members who need to reach different areas, polio or CRF. Yeah, I can send this. Get that.
What we can do is, like, first time people get into the right. And the people that are close to getting the next level, you can talk to them.
One. So does that person have to get permission?
We also get separate plans.
Yeah.
That's quite a few, like, it's a substantial amount, so we can make everybody probably. I don't like totally tolerance.
Yeah, but, I know, I didn't want to just.
I'm not doing it.
Hold on.
I was thinking maybe.
I don't mean, no, I don't mean students. Not to bring it, not to call Harris, unless they give like $800. I wouldn't, yeah, it wouldn't be like, oh, $800. That'd be over maybe two. Even if you open for that year, you need to. Yeah, like it as yeah, it's good not every year. You know.
So these guys are early, because it's not as. The Catholic members during this part of the year, and not solid, so on I automatically fix the dues, so we add that. That's really good. Stay up with that. That's now, let me see. Yeah.
There are clubs that have people from all over the country. Yeah, we want to stand on the club. Occasionally. Rated for legal.
Hours of classes. So, we're gonna come back. Thanks, But you know what freaked me out when I printed out that SAR report? So 22, I said, how do you show we have 23 examples? And I'm going through it, I didn't see Suzanne's name on there, I was like, holy shit. Yes, to be her, no one else, because I believe it shows people. No. But I don't know that today when I look at it, I said she's on it. Oh my God, thank God. I'm the guy saying, oh, Mr. Yesterday, oh, yeah. I think the council, so the other one was, okay, so we'll pick two of the smaller people, and then your vote. You guys are coming to speak. That's a condition of the class. Yeah. So release.
Yeah, looking forward to this night. Looking forward to next year.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't look busy, but just to have there too. Bye, Theo, thank you.
Thank you.
Just having have your part.
Yeah, we will. The Ben reached out to me prior and then he got back to me a couple of weeks later, because I'm so sorry, I wasn't checking my email and we've been seeing because I would love to learn other people and then we already have some interviews. So that's good, I'm for next year. Thank you. See you later.
Thank you. Thank you. Seriously.
You know. I think about jobs, but I think about